Brad Putty.
Hello and welcome to the February edition of my Retros Ramblings, where I thought we'd have a quick look at one of the slightly more bizarre machines that I've got in my collection. It's the Tatung Einstein. So the home computers were fast becoming quite dominant in households back in the 1980s, largely due to the inexpensive supply of the processors used. We saw many manufacturers trying their hand at offering their vision of an 8-bit home computer, namely Sinclair, Acorn and Commodore, who largely dominated the UK market. However, there were a great many other machines available too, some more dominant in other territories, for instance Atari in the USA and MSX in Japan. What may now be considered as also-rans included the Texas Instruments 99-4, the Auric, the Sword M5, Dragon, Amstrad CPC and the Enterprise machines, and the list goes on, and these are really only the more popular choices. There are some really bizarre machines out there as well. One of these also-rans is the Einstein TC01, to give it its full name, from Tatung Incorporated. Tatung are a Taiwanese company with a very proud heritage, having commenced trading in 1907, and they still remain active today. Now, how many companies can lay claim to that? The Einstein, however, was a little late to the 8-bit party, and also quite expensive too. These factors may have played a significant feature in its ultimate demise, because the machine itself is a lovely piece of equipment. It's very well made, with a superb keyboard and very high quality components, giving these machines a reputation as requiring very little maintenance. The Einstein utilises the Z80 processor clocked at 4 MHz, a common processor at this time. However, where it differs is its memory allocation, with a base of 64 kilobytes of RAM with a further 16 kilobytes of video RAM, delivering a resolution of 256 by 192, 16 cores and up to 32 sprites. The sound was well handled by a 3-voice General Instruments AY sound chip, which I believe was also used in the Amstrad CPC machines. One of the Einstein's triumphs is its fantastic keyboard, a real dream for programmers at the time, especially when compared to the Spectrum's dead flesh rubber keys. So much so that some software developers used an Einstein to write their software on, only to port it over to the Spectrum later. With the additional memory allocation available on the Einstein, this gave game developers some wriggle room with their coding whilst developing. The Einstein had a couple of nuances too. Its operating system, for one. A very simple stripped-back machine operating system is all that greets you when you turn the machine on. The Einstein utilises a Crystal DOS operating system, but this is required to load from a disk on turning on the machine. It only takes a few seconds, but this represented a move away from installed operating systems. However, it also gave the Einstein some options too. Differing operating systems could be loaded up instead. For example, you could run the BBC Basic on an Einstein just as easily as a native Crystal DOS. CPM is also possible on an Einstein. Whilst most 8-bit home computers at the time went with the common cassette media source for storage, no such option is available to Einstein users. It's simply not possible on this machine to use a cassette deck for the storage of Einstein software. Tatung chose disk media instead. Now, in 1984, another competition was waging between the 3-inch and the 3.5-inch disc manufacturers. Anyone remember the VHS Betamax wars? Well, as we now know, the 3.5-inch won that particular battle. However, the 3-inch drives were readily available and cheap in 1984. Many retro computer owners will sadly testify as to the brittle nature of drive belts in these now 40-year-old disc drives. Well, if you're an Einstein owner, you're probably running that same drive today without any issues. This was because Tatung used high quality direct drive units from Hitachi. No bells. The Einstein, similar to the BBC from Acorn, had many ports on its rear and sides. It housed a serial port, a Tatung pipe, which was similar but not compatible with the Acorn's BBC, volume controls for its front-facing built-in speaker, Centronics printer port, monitor port, 2 analog to digital ports, which I'm led to believe is for joysticks, although I've never attempted to use these on my machine myself. The Einstein came with just one disk drive on its basic model, although there is space for a second drive that could be installed for an additional £149. Now, when taking into account that the Einstein retailed at £499 on launch, you may begin to see why consumers were a little reticent to purchase these. The drives used were double-sided discs that could hold approximately 200k on 40 tracks on each side, thereby making it possible to store about 8 games on one disc. The read speeds are a dramatic enhancement over the cassette loading times, and it's one of the few areas that the Einstein owners can laugh at Commodore 64 owners. And in the background there'll be a video of me actually loading a game here, and you can see just how quickly it does load. However, due to the short lifespan and much reduced sales figures, as a software library does pale in comparison with the likes of the Spectrum and the Commodore 64. There are approximately 130 games in the Einstein's library, plus many other business and educational titles too. Many of these are ports of games that are available on other machines such as the Spectrum or the MSX. The Einstein sported another peculiar device. Step forward the Speculator, which only cost about £50 on release. This was a small white box that connected to the Tatung pipe and enabled the Einstein to run Sinclair Spectrum games. Well, almost. The code needed a little tinkering with, and I think there were about 3 discs that were produced at the time with a number of games already optimised for the Speculator. I do not own one of these devices, although I would love to see one in action. I've only ever seen one for sale on a particular auction site that we all hate, and the seller wanted £800 for it. Not a chance, Charlie. However, don't despair just yet, as Tony Ellis is currently working on making a Speculator. He's got online footage that shows a working device playing Jetpack. So fingers crossed that this actually sees the light of day. In 2022, I purchased an Einstein, which was condition unknown at the time. Took it on, gave it a thorough strip down and clean because it was rather filthy, switched it on, and everything just worked. It's testament to the exceptional build quality of these machines. My machine only came with one standard 3-inch drive, and discs are becoming more difficult to find these days, so I wanted to explore further options of a more modern media storage. I particularly like using the likes of EverDrive cartridges on my consoles, however the Einstein lacks a cartridge port. However, it is possible to use the second drive bay for a Gotek device. With the exceptional assistance from Daniel Hoare, a Gotek drive complete with a drive bay mount and a caddy was soon in my possession. Now all I had to do was connect it up. Thank you very much, Daniel. Welcome to the world of owning an Einstein. Another peculiarity then presented itself. The motherboard houses a standard floppy port. Now, most floppy drives are identified as master and slave by the cable. I think it's cables 13 and 15 from memory that twist on most machines. Not on the Einstein. A flat cable is required, so I needed a cable that started with a standard floppy plug, had another standard floppy plug first in the chain, and concluded with a 3-inch floppy plug, as the 2 plugs are different. The Einstein sees the master drive as the plug terminating the cable, and the slave drive as a plug in the middle. Now, my cable manufacturing skills are not up to that, so step forward the fine guys at York AV. After a brief discussion with them, they were all too keen to supply such a cable, having never made one before. I think that they were actually keen just to see if it would work, and it did flawlessly. Fantastic service and a great product. I wholly recommend these guys. So this now gives me what I view as an ultimate Einstein experience. I'm fully able to move software between physical 3-inch discs and a USB pen. Great times, eh? Now, where were we? Time for a quick bash on Chucky Egg, I think. If you've not tried the Einstein port of this pinnacle of 8-bit gaming, you're missing out. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Hope you stay safe. Take care out there.